Hey, Thrand here, and you're probably wondering why I'm standing on my shield. This is now an exact replica of the Gokstad shield, or a shield from the Gokstad ship, as I was helped in creating it by getting information from Vegard Vike on Twitter. He helped me out quite a bit in getting the actual stitching properly on the shield, and their theories on how it was covered in hide. Back and front, it is covered, and it's adhered with casein glue. Why is this amazing, and why would I be trying to do this type of test with the shield? That was what we should be asking ourselves. Why is this a test for the shield? The reason it's a test for the shield, Gull-Þóris saga, there is Thorir, and they're trying to get on top of a fortification because they had wooden forts at the time. They use a shield. We're not sure if it's exactly like this shield, but they take a shield and use the spear points. There's 4 spear points that we're assuming, and they hoist him up as high as the spears will allow them as they push it up. He's on top of the shield, and he uses his axe, Thorir, much like Thrander did in the Brigja saga. He uses it at the fortification to hook the side of the fortification, which is probably much higher than this, so he can actually scale.
Still swear if you break yourself, I'm gonna laugh at you.
I just want to show it's plausible. Ha ha ha. These shoes are slippery. I'll have to add that one. I don't know what they did about that problem. But anyway, just wanted to demonstrate. And this shield, the reason that is so amazing that it was able to withstand that is the actual wood that everybody puts so much focus into. They always focus on the actual wood and how strong the wood has to be, is butted together planks. These are just glued and butted together. They are white pine boards, because most of the ones we find are pine planking. Most of them were fir, pine, spruce. Most of them are glued together. They're just butted and glued together with casein glue, from the best of our knowledge. That was the best common wood glue at the time, and Vikings were great carpenters. But we know from Theophilus did a book in the 11th century, or actually the 12th century, the late 11th century, 1110. And in that book he describes how to build shields at the time and cover panels. They talk about tilling the boards down, and they talk about covering them with casein glue and hides. And the first hide he recommends is a horse hide, because horse hide is the toughest of all hides. This is stronger than oxen hide, than buffalo hide, or than a heavy cow hide like this. He recommends that. Then he says ass, which ass has a hard hide as well, harder than cow. Then he recommends cow, and after that, if you have nothing else, you can use some kind of heavy, clean cloth. So cloth would be your least likely choice and probably would not hold up to this. This shield here has been tilled down to the Gokstad ship specs. It's about 5 millimeters in the actual middle. The actual wood is, not with the leather, counting leather too, but just the wood, 5 millimeters thick, and the edging is about 3 to 2, and at the very edge, this is a razor thin edge. So me being able to support my weight on the shield is amazing. I mean, it's very impressive. And you would say, well, the handle, Thrand, you put a nice new oak handle when you redid the shield on there, is allowing it to be used that way. But in theory, that's not really the case. This is the boards, and remember, at the very edge, that's about, I guess for those people would understand, 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch at the very edge, and that is holding my weight. But as you notice, it flexes a lot more. But with all 4 spears around it, I think in the saga that it's possible to do that. But why am I testing the shield that way? Also, men were sometimes carried out of battle if they were wounded, they speak of, on their shields, or if they were slain on their shields. So this shield would most certainly be durable enough to do that. I know it would hold up in a shield wall. It doesn't bend that easily. And if you want to see more testing on it, although it was a little bit thicker before I thinned it out to the exact Gokstad ship specifications, you can go by and check out the video reply to Joerg Sprave's time-traveling Viking. It was called Viking Age shield test. Reply to Joerg Sprave time-traveling Viking here on YouTube. You can look up Joerg Sprave's test. And yes, this is a reply to Joerg Sprave. The shield I sent him was a smaller shield, and I did it based on the Trelleborg shield like I originally did this one, the thickness of the boards, because I too thought maybe the boards had a lot to do with it. At this point, I think it's the hide covering, just like Joerg Sprave, if you watch his test, decided that the hide was everything to the shield. So if you look at his video, you'll see he used some extreme modern monstrosities, I would call them, or mad scientist projects that are extreme. Harpoon cannons and guns, and they pretty much put holes in it that were very deep, but if you were holding the shield out in front of you like you would to receive arrows, you see I can do that here easily for a long time, and you just have to put it out when the thing comes in. Nothing would have been long as your arm to actually hit you through. Even the extremely strong boss from Medieval Shop, the 12 gauge boss, which theirs would have been thicker, maybe 8 to 10 gauge, but iron, stopped the harpoon cannon, or the whatever he calls it, his launcher there. I don't think it's a harpoon, I think it's his high-powered 1000 PSI, I don't know exactly what he calls it, sorry about that. But anyway, it stopped it, so I was extremely impressed. He had a hard time removing the arrows. What we're going to do today is, what I did is I took this out and I fought at the SCA. And I actually used the shield as you would use it in SCA combat against blunted wooden weapons. Now, I've seen shields that people make, they tear it quickly out there. You know, they'll start getting dents in them. I couldn't even tell I fought with it, other than seeing a little bit of remnants of different stuff, like little red from tape and stuff on different things that hit it. It didn't even scratch it. So it did very, very well. I was able to fight with it. I liked it much better being lighter and able to fight with it more quickly and fast and agile. But if you notice in the clips that I show you, there's a lot of wind. So a lot of people were not fighting with shields, because no matter what kind of shield you have, the wind tends to want to tell the shield what to do, which at times can give you a problem. It acts much like a sail in the wind. But today we're going to go ahead, other than the standing on the shield test, to show how durable it is and that it's possible to do what the sagas describe with the Gokstad shield, which has always been a big controversy, because they say they found paint on the outside of the boards, and the boards were thinner than most boards that they find. A quarter inch to, like I said, like about an 1/8 to a 1/16 of an inch at the very, very edge, and well, heck, that's not going to hold up. In most people's mind, even if it was a full quarter-inch shield of white pine, butted planking, you know, it wouldn't behave like this ever, no matter what you did with it. So basically, we're going to shoot this with an arrow as well in a second, like we did in the other video, and that should give us an idea if it's just as durable as the other shield. I think it's going to perform just as well as it did in the other video. I don't think there'll be any difference whatsoever. The same 65, 70-pound bow, depending on draw. These are long arrows, so I'm assuming it's going to be in the highest draw. We have our medieval leaf-shaped broadhead, like could have been used in the Viking Age. And I'm going to fire in armor. Little details I want to bring up to prove you can, because I had a few people say, oh, but fully armored opponents, fully armored Vikings probably didn't fire bows. They were a culture that everyone used all weapons that they were familiar with. Everybody was familiar with bows because they actually used them for hunting normally. So yes, lots of men brought bows with them. I don't know how many arrows, but at any given time they could switch over to a bow if they wanted to, if they felt comfortable using one in the battlefield and had a strong enough bow. Another thing, I want to bring up the fletching. The black goes down on these. I had somebody in a previous video stating, why was I putting the fletching into the bow the wrong way, where it would kick off and fire incorrectly? I never do that. I do have some where the fletching is not done in the manner most people think, where modernly the black would go towards the outside. These go down. So every time you pull one of these out, if you want to know which way the fletching goes, the black goes down. On other arrows, it goes up, and some it goes to the right. So if I put it in the bow, I paid very close attention to make sure that it was leaving the bow properly. Let's go ahead and test the shield. Remember, this is a lot thinner. It's half as thick as it was in thickness from the wood itself, from being tilled down to the Gokstad thickness that a lot of people actually dispute. So let's go ahead and shoot it and see if it performs as good as it did in the previous video. Full draw too, I will pull it all the way back. I would say it did the exact same thing. Let's get a good look, if not better. I think what happened is it actually gave more, being slightly more flexible, and stopped it even more abruptly. we have the exact same effect. It came through maybe a quarter of an inch. That's exactly what we had in the other video. So I really don't think the thickness of the shield wood makes as much difference as the actual hide in the way it's covered itself. And this shield is not damaged in any way, huh?
Did we just get another arrowhead stuck in something?
Yeah, I'll have to get this one out, and it takes pliers, by the way. But no fear, in my repair video, which I'll be putting out too, you can wet the wood inside, because the only thing that's happened with this wood, it's not split in any way. It's just spread apart, like the pressure is forced it in there. So the wood will seal itself back up, and so will the leather, and I can put some glue on it, and it'll be fine. Like I said, the shield's not damaged in any way. We're fine. The shield will continue working. And just as Joerg Sprave said, the shield is basically indestructible. Meaning you could hack it to pieces, but it would take you all day. You'd have to get little cuts in it as you go and cut pieces out and cut large gashes in it if possible to weaken it. You're not going to just come up to this thing and put one hole in it and blank split and the shield fall apart. Anyway, I think this tests to how strong not only Viking shields, but Saxon shields and all shields of the period were that were made in this fashion. I think they were all made in the same way. Another problem, some people believe the trajectory is going down or something is causing this effect. The arrow is going perfectly straight as it should. When it stops abruptly, it's much like shooting into water. Our ballistics gel, as it travels a path down towards gravity, not up or left or right, but down, and it arcs down because the arc of the arrow is also going down due to gravity. So when it hits and it gets stopped that abruptly, it kicks up. Pretty much I think we've proven that the most important thing in the Viking shield is the covering and the actual color under the shields. They were yellow and black. If you look at the Gokstad shields, they were yellow and black on the side of the ship. Or some people say blue, blau. Could be black too. But the dark pigment underneath it was on the actual wood, and they covered it with hide. Well, if they used rawhide like this and not boiled rawhide like I did on the edging, which is like boiled leather that's harder and white, bleached out, you would see everything through it, just like I did on Joerg Sprave's shield. You could see his image, and that was like pretty much a tattoo on the shield underneath the actual leather. I think it would be better for background images, and the front images would probably be painted over the hide, which would make better sense. You put something on front of a dark background, put the color underneath so nothing happens to it, and just paint it on the front so you can retouch up the smaller image over the larger background, which would be a lot more difficult to fix if it started getting scratched or damaged on the front of the shield and things across it. So it makes sense to me why you would find pigment on the boards or planks themselves, even if both sides were covered. A lot of times we find these pigments on the front, so what, you would cover the back and not the front? That makes very little sense. So I think that the shields were actually functional shields that were used on the Gokstad ship. I think this proves it, in my opinion. I think they were far more durable than most people want to give them credit for it, being within wood. And I don't think the wood itself, other than don't use poplar. The original handle I used was poplar, not oak. And the thing is, modern poplar is not dried like it was back in the day. It's kiln dried. So it's so dried out that instead of being split resistant and crack resistant, it just pretty much turns into pulp if it gets hit, and it cracks easily, so don't do that. And also, the shield that I sent to Joerg Sprave was a white pine, or not white pine, but a yellow pine handle. Not a good idea. I should have just went with oak, like I did on this one. And if I make any more shields, I'm going with oak because it's easier for me to get around here. But a lot of their shields, on Rolf Varzeke's shield, he used beech wood, because on the Trelleborg shield, the remnants of the handle that we have left are beech wood, and beech wood would be a very good handle. Anything you can make a bow with, a hardwood bow, in my opinion, because if you see how this is tilled, it's much like a bow, I think would work good, very good for a handle on a shield, because the whole shield, if you watch, reverberates and gives. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed our little episode here, and the arrow testing. I hope you enjoyed that as well. And I think we've pretty much proven that the covering on the shield is more important than the actual wood itself or how it's glued together or anything like that. You just want a flexible wood that when you get through tilling it out, it gives properly with the hide on it, holds the hide to it properly, and that's what part of the idea of tilling it. Also, I'd like to bring up the nails, because a lot of people use these as an example of how thick the hide was. I wish I could get a close-up of one of these nails here. I will, I'll show you a close-up of it. If you look at it, you can see how it's compressed the wood and the leather. So it's set into the shield. It's not on top of the shield. And the bend is far deeper far deeper in than the actual nail itself. So if you have clinched nails like this where you bend the tip and bend it over and hammer it in, or even on the handle, if that's all you had was the nail, sometimes all we find is nail and rivets, they compress and go in depending on how tight the person wants to hammer those in. I mean, some people get carried away like I did and they hammer them in fairly deep. So you don't even, if you use that as your measurement, you would have no idea what millimeter the actual hides were. You would know if they were 1 millimeter, 1.5 millimeter, or 2 millimeter. Oh, another subject I would like to cover, the hides on the shield. The larger shields were thinner on the Gokstad shield. We find smaller shields that are thicker in wood. I think that when the wood comes into play where you might want it slightly thicker is because you can get away with the weight on a smaller shield, but on those shields they might have used smaller animal hides or thinner hides, so the wood helped make up for that amount. But of course on a larger animal like a full horse hide or on a full cow hide or even an ass hide, but a full one, you know, the full hide itself, you can cover a shield this size easily, and it's very, very thick. Like horse hide is extremely thick. So you could easily do a thinner wood to a larger shield if you have the proper hides prepared for it and get away with it, and it will be just as strong. Whereas if you have a smaller shield with thinner hides, the plankings would have to be thicker. The planks would have to be slightly thicker to kind of make up for the lack of hide if you were going for the same strength. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Size of hides may have had something to do with some of the shields we find in the diameters and dimensions. But the Vikings did favor larger shields than some of the other people at the time. I think the shield was the primary defense, and I think they cared a lot about it and wanted to make sure it worked. But anyway, as always, I hope you've enjoyed our episode and farewell. I am here with a very special and important project. I've been wanting to build a Viking Age shield for a very long time with heavy oxen rawhide or heavy rawhide and see how durable the shield could actually be using very thin wood like pine, but the actual rawhide being the true strength behind the shield. Well, I addressed Joerg Sprave on this thing, saying that I believe I could build a period shield if I could afford it, and beat your new polycarbonate shield from the time-traveling Viking. I was surprised that I got an immediate contact from Viking War of Clans, a game that I do play myself, and they were more than happy to sponsor this historical project and this friendly competition, so to speak. Viking War of Clans has gone through a huge, massive expansion, finally adding new shaman and new kingdoms. This is really, truly the day to join the action. The Vikings really stands out with its HD 3D graphics and smooth gameplay. But best of all, you get to choose your own playstyle, meaning you can build an impenetrable fortress and hold on to what you own, or you can go out and gather an army of Vikings and berserkers and go around and ravage the land and take what you want. One of the things I like about Viking War of Clans are relive old games from back in the day. It's much like having the early EverQuest community with millions of players, but you can build a civilization and even destroy someone's civilization, much like Age of Empires, Warcraft, or one of my favorites, Dungeon Keeper. I also recommend that you try one of the in-game legendary battles with over 1 million players. I can't even describe how it makes you feel like a Viking or a true berserk ganger as you go through trying to crush your enemies and best them and see who is truly better. Try Vikings now, joining me and millions of others with the links down below. You'll get 200 gold, a protection shield, all for free.